Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of Marilyn's Cafe Society on YouTube. Today is Tuesday, it's May 1st, May Day 2018. And of course this is the second part to our Saturday show that's not going to be happening until Cinco de Mayo. But anyone who jumps on YouTube during the week or the website during the week will get surprised with this interview. So let me set up the introduction for my guest and then we'll start our talk. Now, my guest has a business administration, a PhD in business administration for strategic leadership and organizational culture. He was awarded a Doctor of Humane Letters from Fisk University, his alma mater. Of course, he's founder, president, and CEO of Music World Entertainment. By the way, it was crowned Top Imprint Label of the Decade 2000 to 2009 by Billboard magazine. Also under his guidance and leadership, Destiny's Child was named Billboard magazine's Top 10 Artists of the Decade during the same time period. He's visiting professor at Texas Southern University and author of a couple of books, a couple of which we will be referencing during our talk. You still don't know who I'm talking about? Well, everybody help me in joining Dr. Mathew Knowles to the show. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning to you, Marilyn, and I'm excited about the interview. Thank you for the great intro.
Yes, I'm quite impressed. I don't know how you fell under my radar all this time, but I'm so happy that we connected and you were able to spend a little time with us today.
Well, so am I, and I don't know how I fell under your radar. We got to put more intensity on that radar.
That's right, I agree. Okay, so jumping right into our talk. You recently published a second book entitled Racism from the Eyes of a Child. And of course you revisit your difficult childhood growing up in the Deep South in Alabama and the post-slavery civil rights era where segregation and discrimination was a way of life. But in the book, to sum it all up, you pretty much focus on stories as well as how that experience sort of made you tough and a fighter in life. Is that right?
Yeah, who we are is really sculptured when we're a child. And you know, I'll tell a brief story of the introduction of the book. I was 5 years old in Gaston, Alabama, a little small town. But in the summers, my mother would take my brother and I down to our grandparents in an even smaller town. We called it the country, Marilyn, Alabama. And my mother and grandmother were like oil and water. They didn't get along. So this one particular night, my mother chose to get into an argument and then leave and walk a mile to our nearest relative. We had to first walk down a dirt road and then on to the highway. You know, back then, Marilyn, there were no lights on the highways in the country. So we only had the moon and the stars as light, and we saw in the distance lights, and then we began to hear these horns blowing, and the lights got brighter and brighter, and the horns got louder and louder. And my mother then grabbed my hand, and she said, "We got to get in the bushes. We got to get in the bushes now." And so as the horns got louder, and the lights got brighter, then my mother got on top of me, and then she told my older brother, "Jesse, if anything happened, you and your brother, y'all running that barbed wire fence in that pasture with those cows, and y'all just run as fast as you can." And so finally the cars passed, and we got out of the bushes back onto the highway. And that was at 5 years old, my experience racism from the eyes of a child, because that was a Ku Klux Klan rally.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's reminiscent of a few stories my mom told us. She grew up in Mississippi as well, and how the Ku Klux Klan actually came to their house to run my grandfather away. And, you know, it's very unsettling for me. You know, maybe I'm a decade or so behind you, but I didn't experience that. So as a kid, hearing those stories, it was very unsettling. And even now, you know, with you, Mathew Knowles, the Mathew Knowles that you are, people never knew that about you. So it's really wonderful that you're sharing what you experienced, and in the hopes of raising awareness to this conscious and unconscious bias that we're still kind of dealing with today.
No, we're not still kind of dealing with it. We're still dealing with it.
That's
Every
right.
day racism exists. We see what happened at Starbucks. Two black men waiting on a third to have a business meeting. Use the bathroom was asked to leave. Or we could look at LA Fitness in New Jersey. The brother had been a member for 8 years. Brought another young man to work out with him. Told him they couldn't work out. This happens every day in America.
That's right.
Racism.
That's right. That's right. You're right. You're absolutely correct. And so here you are, sort of facing it head on, and again, in the hopes of just sharing who you are as a person beyond what we all know you as, the music mogul, the father of Beyonce and Solange, and all that you've achieved in life. But you also hit on some very sensitive topics that sort of exist in the Black community as well, and that's the topic of coloration.
I do. I do. My mother used to tell me when I was a young child, don't ever bring no nappy-haired black woman to her house. That was wrong. And I actually, as a child, internalized that. And as a result, dated primarily white women and black women of lighter complexion. And I just wanted to share that story because I think, again, in order for us to have change, Marilyn, it's not going to be comfortable. Change is never comfortable.
You're so right.
We've got to get over the hurdle, and we've got to have these discussions. And I coined a word in the book that's called social courage. And social courage is when we see, hear racism or sexism or xenophobia or homophobia, and we hear people saying nasty things or doing wrong things, that we speak up, speak out, speak faster and sooner.
That's right.
And that's what we have to do. And yes, I talk about very uncomfortable dialogue and topics.
Yeah, it goes all the way. Yeah, I mean, that coloration thing goes with the good hair, the bad hair thing, and even, classism existing here in the Black community as well. Just kind of.
But Marilyn, coloration was imposed on our women. It was not their option. And so we must never forget that. It was imposed on them during slavery, our women, and they were raped by the slave master. We can't make it we can't dress it up. We got to call it what it is. They were raped and then conditioned. Those of lighter complexion were conditioned to have that same kind of mentality of the slave owner. Tell on the others, hate them, you're better than them.
Right.
All of this stems from slavery.
Right. You're right, and so, but there is a level of awareness now, in 2017, and it's something that can be corrected and changed, and hopefully, our people will be able to recognize that and do that. You talked about something else that's uncomfortable, and that's the eroticized rage in your book.
Yeah, I do. I talk, Marilyn, a lot about my years of therapy, which saved my life. I'm convinced that I've not gone to therapy for years, that it certainly saved my life. And there was a defining moment in my therapy sessions over the years that I realized that, and my therapist realized, that it was the racial trauma that I had internalized, and my mother's saying comments like she said, and the anger and the rage that I had. And what eroticized rage is, we have a lot of biracial dating today, and that's okay. it's okay when you date someone of another race because you care about them, but not what is okay is, and you probably heard this before because I used to say it, women say it as well. I only date white girls, or I only date white men.
Mm-hmm.
See, that then is a different element. There's a problem when someone has internalized relationships like that. An eroticized rage is when some black men only date white women, subconsciously not understanding that it's their way of getting back that anger and to get even, to get one up on and the white man. And that's what eroticized rage is.
Okay, that's very, 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 very interesting. Just moving along because I know you're pressed for time, but I want to get into what many are describing as the 2018 civil and human rights movement. Today's activism against civil and human rights, the Me Too, all these groups popping up lately, fighting for the rights of themselves and others. How do you compare all of that versus the civil rights movement of your time and my parents' time?
Well, a lot of our young people don't remember, or even some don't even know that there used to be colored and white restrooms and white and colored water fountains, and that black people couldn't eat in the restaurants. A lot of our young people don't even realize. They don't even realize, folks like me at 66 years old, I never went to a black school growing up in Gaston, Alabama. My mother went to high school at Coretta King and was really engraved in the civil rights movement, and so was I as a young kid, being the first. A lot of folks don't know what that was like to get spit on, to get beaten, to get electric prodded. Some of our people got killed, gave their lives. So my answer to your question is, I don't think we're going about it the right way. I think that we should use some of what we use in the civil rights movement. What these kids down in Parkland are doing. These are high school kids. They say, hey, we're going to talk about gun rights. We're not just going to talk about it. That's my problem. We talk a lot, but we don't have a lot of action. I call it the talk-to-do ratio.
Right.
So my thing is, in the talk-to-do ratio, let's demonstrate more. Let's financially boycott more. Let's make sure we vote, and not just vote for presidential elections. Let's vote for all of those, when it's judgeships and district attorneys and programs. We need to be voting 3-4 times a year, not just once. Those who even vote once. And if you're not doing that, that's a real problem for me. But that's what I think. We got to we got to hit people financially and boycott, because at the end of the day, it's about the dollar. That's the one thing racism understands, is dollar.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And the power of the vote. And, that's something that I encourage my listeners and viewers to do as well. Start with the voting, then get out there and start helping with campaigns. And, maybe even one day you may yourself decide to run for office so that you can affect some change as well. And, we're making strides. We're getting there. I think
so. Again, it's the talk-to-do ratio. We gotta step up the talk-to-do ratio.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just be talking about it. We gotta do it.
Mm-hmm. And you just talked about children, college students, high school students being actively involved in the civil rights movement. I had Thomas M. Armstrong on my show about a year or so ago, who wrote Autobiography of a Freedom Rider, and he himself, along with other Mississippian college students, were involved in that process, and he had enlightened me in ways that my parents had not as well, just as you have. And this was just brought to my attention too, that this month marks the 55th anniversary of the Birmingham Children's Crusade. The Children's Defense Fund, along with the Jack and Jill of America, will be commemorating and remembering the children who stood up, went to jail to help break the Jim Crow era in the South. And I think a lot of us skip past that. We don't realize that there were children on the front line facing those fire hoses.
I was one of them. And that's why I had to go years of therapy for that racial trauma. Kids played a major role. I'm talking about 10, 11, 12-year-olds. I'm not talking about 18, 19-year-olds. I'm talking about young kids played a very integral part in the civil rights movement. And so did, teenagers. And we forget, Martin Luther King was in his mid-20s when he did the March on Washington. We said it again. Martin Luther King was in his mid-20s.
Yes. I honestly think the youth of that time was more serious minded because they were so close to the post-slavery era, right? And Jim Crowism.
And we didn't have the distractions that our young people today have. I mean, we had none of those distractions. We didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have social media. We didn't have video games. We had none of that.
Right. Yeah. And so the kids are just so far removed from that, but it's up to the parents and the adults in their lives to remind them, where you came from and how far we still have to go. And you mentioned social media just now. It's really playing a crucial role these days, don't you think?
Well, it can work extremely positive, but it also can work against us because a lot of what we read and see on social media is what I call the Jedi mind trick. It's really not real, and people spend, the average, teenager today, a young person between the ages of 18 and 24, picks up that telephone 2,000 times a day, and just not focused. Just not focused. So it has its pluses, but it has its negatives as well.
Correct. All right. And so the big question is this. Do you think we're going backwards because the young kids are so far removed from the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s? And do you believe that racism can one day be eradicated?
Well, let me answer the first one. Do I think we're going backwards? The answer is yes. And let me tell you why I think we're going backwards. Because we have a president that we didn't want to run in office. That's going backwards. And the reason why he's in office is, quite frankly, one thing. We didn't go out to vote like we had before. It's as simple as that. I tell people, man, if you didn't vote, shut up. I don't want to hear your thoughts. I got beaten and prodded so that we could vote. And that's something that I take extremely serious. I walk on coals so that I can vote. I mean, that's where those black women in Alabama, when Donald Trump endorsed a fool to be the one for Senate, congressional Senate race there in Alabama, when it was Judge Moore against Doug Jones, 98% of all black women who were registered to vote, 98%, I'm going to say that again, 98% who were registered to vote voted. And Judge Moore lost.
Very good.
That's talk to do ratio.
There you go.
There you go. They were fed up and they made a difference. And we went going backwards because we didn't make a difference in the last election. We went backwards.
Okay.
We got lazy. We got comfortable.
Do you think the fact that there's maybe some men out there who didn't want to see a woman become president, they voted the other way too?
Are we speaking white men? Yes. Black men, I'm not sure they even showed up.
Okay. Yeah, it's, I don't know. We do have some work to do. And speaking of that talk to do ratio, that is one of the 10 traits of highly successful people coming from your first book, DNA of Achievers. Just real quick, as we wrap up, I know you're pressed for time. Give us just a couple more. Just hit on a couple more that you think are important.
In which book?
Pardon me?
In which book?
Oh, DNA of Achievers.
The DNA of Achievers. The number one trait in DNA of Achievers to be successful is you have to be passionate about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And what coexists with passion is work ethics.
Yes.
And they coexist. You can't have one without the other.
Yes.
So those are two of the most important traits is passion. Live your passion, what you're passionate about. A lot of people work and live doing a job, something they don't even like doing. But it's about finding that passion. And I assure you, it might not make money in the beginning, but in the end, you'll be successful because you're passionate. Because you're going to work, research, do all the things you have to because you love what you're doing. And then lastly, learn from failure. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. The people that are successful, for every one positive, successful thing they've done, you haven't seen the other 10 or 20 that they failed.
That's right.
I'm certainly an example of that.
Yes.
But, you learn from failure. You learn from making mistakes. So you just can't stop.
And that's where that's what most people do. Once they fail at something, they just throw in the towel and stop. But you're saying push past that and continue to work.
And learn from it. And check your ego. Successful people, they don't have that kind of ego. They have confidence, but they don't have ego. You know what ego is? Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity.
I'm going to write that down. That's as the kids say, a tweetable moment. Got that. All right. So for passion, it's always something that you love to do, something that you would do even if you didn't get paid for it. You just love to do it. But your passion doesn't always equal that God-given gift or talent, right? Someone might love to play basketball, but they're not the best player. You know what I mean?
That's untrue. Because if they're less passionate about basketball, they're going to be practicing at 2 in the morning.
Okay. All right.
You're missing it.
But
they coexist with passion as work ethic. To be good at basketball means you have to practice.
Right. But a gift is something that you just automatically do, right? I mean,
if you're not passionate about it, it doesn't matter you have a gift. It doesn't matter if you're not passionate about it. So let's use basketball. I'm glad you used that. So the greatest basketball player of all time, who would you say that is?
Michael Jordan.
I agree with you. But in the 10th grade, he could not make his team.
I remember reading that.
And he wasn't good, right?
Some would think.
Well, if he didn't make the team, even then he wasn't that good. So that goes to your thing is if you're not good, you not make your passion. The answer is yes. Michael Jordan is an example. He wasn't good. He started practicing. He started focusing.
Yes.
He got rid of all the other things in his life that was taking his time up so he could focus.
Yes.
And he practiced. He was go to school dribbling with his left hand, go to school dribbling with right hand. His dad would help him on his jump shot at night because his dad played a very important role.
Yes.
But that became his passion, and because work ethic coexists with it, he became the greatest basketball player ever. I should drop the mic on that.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. All right. Last one. What is better, having a coach, a mentor, or An advocate.
Having a mentor, someone that has done it, who can pave the way for you, who can expose you with relationships, and who can be your coach,
Mm-hmm.
a mentor by far. So
Mm-hmm.
there's three types of people in the world that we need to associate with. Number one is having a mentor. And that's simply as easy as asking, will you mentor me? And that being humble. Someone that's successful and say, hey, I want to be like you, or I want to be the best. Will you help me? Will you mentor me? The second kind of person in the world is an icon. Seldom are you going to be able to meet an icon.
Right.
Whenever you do meet an icon, we only got at most 2 minutes to hear what you got to say. So be prepared.
Yes.
You can't talk all day to an icon. The third one is I always tell people to just lean over in their chair. The second one is, like I said, the third one. The third one is all those friends on your back that's pulling you down that you need to get rid of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whew. All right. Well, listen.
So, the reason my next book is, I'm sorry, I'm in a store right now. Welcome to Texas. The next book that I'm writing is called The Emancipation of Slaves through Music. The Emancipation of Slaves through Music. And that'll be out in June. And I'm enjoying it. Then after that, I started on the Destiny's Child book. Look forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, we're getting in the classroom next week. Next semester, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my whole thing is that if I don't tell my story, somebody's going to tell his story.
Right. And you want the right story, the accurate story to get out there.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that you started out by saying that people don't know.
That's right.
I'm going to talk more about Destiny's Child and a lot of people's success and what role I played.
Absolutely.
Some people are beginning to take credit for a role they didn't play in their success. And we need to clarify that.
Okay, now that's an interesting point because we all had help, right? Someone or that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. So
Anyway, I'm gonna have to run right now. I really appreciate it. People can go to MathewKnowles.com. That's my site. They can buy books there, and I'll sign them. Or they can go to Amazon or any of the digital outlets. But thank you so much for this opportunity. It's going to get crowded in the store. You're not going to be able to hear me here in a second.
fantastic. I appreciate you hanging out. If you ever come to the Chicagoland area, just have your people reach out to me. It'd be nice to meet you.
I'd like to do that. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dr. Knowles. Peace. All right, everybody. Well, that, of course, is Dr. Mathew Knowles, Grammy Award-winning executive producer for Destiny's Child and others, author, professor, business extraordinaire, and so much more, sharing some time with us on this Tuesday, May Day, to talk about his new book, which is Racism from the Eyes of a Child, and his previous book, The DNA of Achievers, where he just kind of hit on some of the 10 traits that he believes highly successful people have. And of course, we'll have him back on the show when his next book comes out, and we'll delve a little bit more, because this man is loaded with knowledge. He's very passionate about civil rights and eradicating racism and just educating and making people aware of of themselves and the state of the country and how we got here. So again, thank you, Dr. Knowles, for stopping by Marilyn's Cafe Society. And of course, I look forward to more talks. And guys, that's going to do it for this segment of the show. Again, this will be part 2 to Saturday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo's show. Only it's pre-recorded. And those of you who have just popped in YouTube to see what was happening on the channel, you're lucky because you got a chance to check it out in advance. And those, of course, who went to the website. All right. Peace, everybody. Talk to you Saturday. Remember, we'll be live, Marilyn's Cafe Society on YouTube. Check out the website throughout the week. You'll have surprises like this. Have a good rest of the day.